Joining us now is one of the all-time greats in Notre Dame football history. He's won a Super Bowl, been named an NFL MVP, and he's a college football Hall of Famer. Joe Theismann, welcome back to Notre Dame Day.
Jack, it's always great to be there. The only regret I have is we can't do this in person. But hopefully next year I'll be back and have a chance to sit and visit with you face-to-face like we have in the past.
That is the plan. Let's start this interview because we're coming up on the NFL draft with a look back 50 years ago. You were drafted by both the Miami Dolphins for football and the Minnesota Twins for baseball, yet you chose to sign with the Toronto Argonauts and play in the Canadian Football League. Why did you choose the CFL over the NFL, and if you could do it over again, would you make that same decision today?
Oh, Jack, what a great question that is. For me, it was I actually did not have an agent help me with my negotiations. I was a Notre Dame guy. I thought I was educated enough to be able to handle the negotiations of professional athletics. Come to find out, I really didn't, because I let my emotions get involved. I had gone down to Miami after they drafted me. As a matter of fact, during the draft, somebody had said, we'll draft you in the first round, the second round. It turned out that I was drafted in the fourth round, and I got bored. So Roger Baldessari, who was our PR guy, I was in his office for the first and second round. I said, Raj, I'll tell you what. I'm going down to play basketball. Call me if somebody wants me. He came and got me, said Miami drafted me. Coach Shula drafted me. Flew to Miami, told him I'd be a Miami Dolphin come heck or high water. But then there was a clause in the contract that had me paying back a bonus, even if I didn't show up. And you have to understand, 1967, 1971 was a very difficult time when you had the Vietnam War going on. So I didn't know if I would be called to active duty. I didn't know if I'd be able to finish the contract, and I didn't want to pay the money back. So we went back and forth. And then finally, Leo Cahill, who coached the Toronto Argonauts, called and said, come to Canada. We have an offer. I flew up there. They said, this offer is only good if you're in the country. If you leave, it's off the table. I signed there, flew back to South Bend. Eric calls me. Eric was my consultant, who I never consulted. And so he said, what have you done? I said, I signed with the Toronto Argonauts. He said, I know. Coach Shula's on a plane right now coming up here. And Coach Shula came up and read me the riot act. And but I never regretted going to Canada. I missed three Super Bowls that Miami went to. The Super Bowl that they went undefeated in was one of the ones that I wound up going. They went and got Earl Morrall. And so this is the way you reconcile situations, Jack. Had I not gone to the Canadian Football League, the Miami Dolphins would have never gotten Earl Morrall, who I believe started 11 games in that undefeated season. So in a way, I feel, I don't know, maybe a little responsible for the fact that they had an undefeated season because I wasn't there. But that's how I wound up in Canada. And then George Allen traded a #1 pick to Miami for me to bring me back to the Washington football team.
And that certainly worked out very, very well. You were considered to be an undersized quarterback in the NFL, and yet you had incredible success with the Redskins. Please put on an NFL agent hat right now and tell us why NFL teams should be interested in the opportunity to draft Ian Book.
I think, first of all, he's a great competitor. He's smart, he's knowledgeable, he's a winner. And so often people just focus on statistics. Well, in the offense that Notre Dame ran, it features more of a running attack. I mean, that's what Tommy does. That's what Brian's always liked. Brian's always liked to run the football and throw to the tight end. They really don't throw the wide receivers that much. And so it was hard for Ian to be able to showcase that particular aspect of his skill set. I think there's, like I say, he's intelligent, he's smart, he's competitive, he's tough. And he's going to do everything he can to help you win a football game. Jack, I've said this 1,000 times to so many people. The quarterback position is the single most dependent position on the field. And if you don't believe me, ask Patrick Mahomes what it's like when you don't have your 2 starting tackles and go play in a Super Bowl. So I think Ian's going to be one of those guys that, isn't rated that high. Maybe he's a 5th, 6th round pick, but it doesn't matter. All you want to do is get invited to the dance. That's all you want to do. Get on a team, have somebody pick you up, then go show your skill set and let your abilities speak for themselves.
Now, earlier today, we had on a good friend of yours, a former teammate, Tom Gatewood. I'm not sure there are many quarterback to wide receiver combos that are in the College Football Hall of Fame, but both of you are. What do you remember the most about playing with Tom?
Tom was an extremely gifted athlete. Big, really, by comparison today, he'd be like a hybrid between a tight end and a wide receiver. Great skill set, a lot faster than people thought, terrific hands. I wouldn't say blocking was a forte, and I know Tommy's watching, so Tom, I apologize, but the truth of the matter is blocking was not a forte. But it seemed like anytime you threw the ball anywhere near him, he'd catch it. And that from a quarterback is a wonderful, wonderful thing to have, people who can get the job done for you and catch the ball. But Tommy was special. He really was. And obviously was an All-American and in the Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame, because of his abilities. And I know now he came home to South Bend, to Notre Dame. And it's great to see so many guys come back home.
Joe, nobody knows better than you that there is not a more glamorous position in college football or a more pressure-packed position in college football than the Notre Dame quarterback position. You lived it. There is a battle going on this campus right now to see who will win that job this fall. What advice would you give the quarterback who wins that role, and what advice would you give to his backup?
Well, I think, first of all, in college football, professional football, high school football, you're only one play away from having a chance to play the game. If someone else is a starter, you have to prepare yourself like you're going to start. And it's hard, Jack. It's so hard. When you're a 2, you don't get the reps. You don't get all the time that you need with the starters, but you still have to do the mental reps. And whenever you get an opportunity to work, you work. And then I used to stay after practice to get all of the physical stuff done. Whether it was professional football or collegiate football, I would take the time to be able to work on my skill set. And that's what you do. And I think the important thing is you study, you learn, and you listen. And you listen to the coaches, you understand what they want and what they look for. As a matter of fact, what I did my freshman year, I was 5'10" and 160 pounds, 55 pounds, when I entered the University of Notre Dame, one of 13 quarterbacks. And I decided I'd go in a week early, spend some time with Coach Pagna, spend some time understanding the offense, spend some time figuring out where I stood in the huddle. Because coaches are like executives when it comes to businesses. They like meetings to run smoothly. They like practices to run smoothly. Era was a stickler for that. So what I did basically is I created an opportunity for myself to be able to go in and be the first one in line. And then it was up to my abilities whether I could keep the job or not. So I think my advice to be whichever one winds up being the starting quarterback, enjoy it, work hard. It's your job. It's your job to keep it. It's your job to be respected by the guys that are on the field with you and the coaches and the fans of the University of Notre Dame. You have to understand that you're representing something bigger than just college football. I think the University of Notre Dame has done that. And if you look at the legacy of people that have played there, not just at the quarterback position, but you look at our women's teams and the great success that they've had on the athletic fields. There's a real legacy that's been created at the University of Notre Dame when it comes to our athletics. And you become a part of that. And I'll never forget, Roger was a great mentor to me, Roger Baldessari. When I used to do interviews, when I started as a sophomore, Roger would sit behind the person that was interviewing me. And someone would ask me a question. He would sit there and he would either nod his head yes, which means go ahead and answer it, or he would go like this and turn his head side to side. And that basically was, try and figure out a way to avoid this any way you can. So he really taught me the nuts and bolts of doing interviews. And you're going to be asked to do a lot of interviews. I think he used to stress this to me. He said, never take credit yourself. Always compliment your opponent and always compliment your teammates. He said, Joe, if you do those 3 things, you're probably going to be okay for every interview that you do. And you know what, Jack, that hasn't changed one bit. It's a philosophy that I've carried with me all through my entire life, that when I sit down and do interviews or I have time to visit with someone, those are the things that are important. And that's the thing, it's not about you. It's not about you. Yes, you've earned the right to be the starting quarterback. Yes, you deserve it, but it's not about you. It's about the University of Notre Dame. It's about the reputation that you have at the university, and it's about the people that you rep.
Not only has that not changed, in this era of social media, it's probably even more important advice to keep you out of hot water, because you can't say anything that's out there nowadays and not pay a price. You have done virtually everything there is to do in sports broadcasting and broadcasting in general, but you've also worked many of the Notre Dame Day broadcasts. I think maybe the most unique video broadcast in the history of video broadcast. Why is taking part in this event every year, and you've not only been a guest, you've also been a host, why is it so important for you to make time to be part of this?
Well, first of all, I love the University of Notre Dame. I appreciated the opportunity to be able to go there. And everything that's happened to me after I've graduated from the University of Notre Dame has been through a lot of different connections that I've had at the university. And I was listening to a couple of the young people earlier. It's about the people you meet. It's about the people that you have in your dorms. It's about what you do socially inside your dorms. It's a culture unto itself. It's a very unique university. I don't know of any other university that does what we do with Notre Dame Day. There isn't anyone out there. I mean, and it's done so well. All these hours that we spend and everybody representing the different dormitories. And I was actually, my first dormitory was Breen Phillips. That's when when I was there, it was an all male institution at that time. And so to me, the university is very important to me. The way people think about it and talk about the university is important to me. And I think through what we're doing right now, it gives people a chance to be able to see all the different aspects at the university, whether it's people from around the world. You know, we are an international university. We have an incredible reach around the world. And you mentioned the University of Notre Dame, and it's a bit polarizing. People say, oh, at Notre Dame, I don't like them, or else they absolutely love them. And they never went there. No matter what city you go to, you're going to find someone. I can tell you a real quick story about the reach of the University of Notre Dame. In 1971, we went to Hawaii to play in the Hula Bowl. And as I got off the plane, we'd just beaten Texas in the Cotton Bowl. I got off the plane, and there were about 50 people making a bunch of noise a little bit away. It was the Notre Dame Club of Hawaii who came there to get me and take me to a private luau. Everybody else had to go to a hotel, but the University of Notre Dame family was there to welcome me to Hawaii. And that to me is a great example of what this university is all about. It's about family. It's about the right things. It's about teaching things. It's about expanding yourself as a person and learning as much as you can, and appreciating the opportunity to be there. It's a very, very special place to me, and that's why I love doing this.
Joe, as always, a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time tonight.
Jack, always great to be with you, and go Irish.